7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. There are many individuals who have achieved an incredible degree of outward success but have found themselves struggling with an inner hunger, a deep need for personal congruency and effectiveness, and for healthy, growing relationships with other people. A few years ago, my wife and I were struggling with this kind of concern. One of our sons was having a very difficult time in school. He was doing poorly academically, athletically, he was small, skinny, and uncoordinated, swinging his baseball bat, for example, almost before the ball was even pitched. Others would laugh at him. We attempted to psych him up using positive mental attitude techniques. "Come on, son. You can do it. We know you can." When others laughed, we reprimanded them. "Leave him alone. Get off his back. He's just learning." And our son would cry and insist that he'd never be any good and that he didn't like baseball anyway. When we honestly examined our deepest feelings, we realized what we really communicated to him was, "You aren't capable. You have to be protected." We began to realize that if we wanted to change the situation, we first had to change ourselves. And to change ourselves effectively, we first had to change our perceptions. Instead of trying to change him, we tried to stand apart, to separate us from him, and to sense his identity, individuality, separateness, and worth. He had been nurtured on this protection, so he went through some withdrawal pains. "We don't need to protect you," was the unspoken message. "You're fundamentally okay." As the weeks and months passed, he began to feel quite confident and affirmed. But before we can really understand these 7 habits, we need to understand our own paradigms and how to make a paradigm shift. Paradigm is simply the way we look at things. Consider this image of a woman. This experiment was originally conducted at Harvard Business School with 2 groups. The first group was shown this picture, and the second group this, and combined they were shown this, over which they began to argue the age to be 22 and 70 respectively. The purpose of the experiment was the way people look at things with already having something in their minds. Albert Einstein observed, "The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them." Inside out means to start first with self, even more fundamentally, to start with the most inside part of self, with your paradigms, your character, and your motives. Habit 1. Be proactive. Reactive people are often affected by their physical environment. If the weather is good, they feel good. Proactive people can carry their own weather with them. The ability to subordinate an impulse to a value is the essence of the proactive person. In the words of Gandhi, "They cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them." It is our willing permission, our consent to what happens to us, that hurts us far more than what happens to us in the first place. For a clear understanding, let us see the story of Viktor Frankl. Frankl was imprisoned in the death camps of Nazi Germany, where he experienced things that were so repugnant to our sense of decency that we shudder to even repeat them. His parents, his brother, and his wife died in the camps or were sent to the gas ovens. They could control his entire environment, they could do what they wanted to his body, but his basic identity was intact. Frankl would project himself into different circumstances, such as lecturing to his students after his release from the death camps. He would describe himself in the classroom, in his mind's eye, and give his students the lessons he was learning during his very torture. He became an inspiration to those around him. Frankl described an accurate example of proactivity. Self-awareness enables us to stand apart and examine even the way we see ourselves, our paradigm, the most fundamental paradigm of effectiveness. Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. In your mind's eye, see yourself going to the funeral parlor or chapel, parking the car, and getting out. But, this is your funeral, 3 years from today. All these people have come to honor you, to express feelings of love and appreciation for your life. Now think deeply. What would you like each of these speakers to say about you and your life? To begin with, the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. All things are created twice. There's a mental or first creation, and a physical or second creation to all things. The carpenter's rule is measure twice, cut once. You have to make sure that the blueprint, the first creation, is really what you want, that you've thought everything through. The most effective way I know to begin with the end in mind is to develop a personal mission statement. Habit 3. Put first things first. Take just a moment and write down a short answer to the following question. What one thing could you do, you aren't doing now, that if you did on a regular basis, would make a tremendous positive difference in your personal life? From Habit 2 we have concluded to look at things with a bigger picture, or to view things as their outcome. Considering a person's wanted to be fit and wanted to give time to his family, but in reality, is doing more of arranging folders or scheduling meetings for his boss or making presentation at the office. We are not undermining the value of any task here to be done, but to decide for you what will matter to you after you look from the end, what you have been doing your whole life. Habit 4. Think win-win. Think win/win resolution can be difficult, and sometimes feels impossible. You also must listen carefully and genuinely try to understand the other person's perspective and goals, then explicitly and respectfully express your own point of view. Eventually both parties can reach a solution that neither could have come up with on their own. Suppose you are a YouTuber and I'm a YouTuber too. I watch your videos and recommend them to my audience. You saw this gesture of mine and repeated the same with your channel. Now we both have a larger section of the audience, which is a win-win. Instead of leaving negative comments from a dummy YouTube account that will somehow get them to search for my videos, I tried the opposite. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. One Sunday morning on a subway in New York, people were sitting quietly. Then suddenly, a man and his children entered the subway car. The children were so loud and rambunctious that instantly the whole climate changed. The man sat down next to me. The children were yelling back and forth, throwing things. It was very disturbing. So finally, I turned to him and said, "Sir, your children are really disturbing a lot of people. Wonder if you could control them a little more?" The man said softly, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something about it. We just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think, and I guess they don't know how to handle it either." Seek first to understand involves a very deep shift in paradigm. We typically seek first to be understood. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to think, and I guess they don't either speaking or preparing to speak. It is equally critical in reaching a win-win situation. Habit 6, synergize. What is synergy? Simply defined, it means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Suppose a kid wanted a pack of sweets that costs $4, and he has only $2 for it, and finds another kid with the same problem. If they both synergize, they can easily share the box of sweets and both get what they want. When you communicate synergistically, you are simply opening your mind and heart and expressions to new possibilities, new alternatives, new options. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Suppose you were to come upon someone in the woods working feverishly to saw down a tree. "What are you doing?" you ask. "Can't you see? I'm sawing down this tree." You look exhausted. "How long have you been at it?" "Over 5 hours. And I'm beat. This is hard work." "Well, why don't you take a break for a few minutes and sharpen the saw? I'm sure it would go a lot faster." "I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing." Habit 7 is taking time to sharpen the saw. It surrounds the other habits on the 7 habits paradigm because it is the habit that makes all the others possible. Habit 7 is a personal PC. It's preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. It's renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social/emotional. Sharpen the saw basically means expressing all 4 motivations. It means exercising all 4 dimensions of our nature, regularly and consistently, in wise and balanced ways.